Hello, and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Events RSVP component in CRM. The CRM RSVP user group makes it easy for you to be able to create events and track RSVPs and attendance for any type of event that you might be holding. And here are some examples that we've heard from some of the clients who are currently using the tool set, but we're definitely not limited to just these types of events. The components, as we'll see, are going to allow you to track attendance, RSVPs, and spending for any type of event. But some examples clients have been using are member mixers, board meetings and annual meetings, award shows, CVB workshops. All of those types of things, we might want to send out invites to show to our partners the benefit of working with the destination as they get invited to these types of events. We may also want to track back the RSVPs back to the partner record. We may want to track the attendance back to the partner record, and of course the in-kind and expenses back to the partner record. So those first four examples are some of the most common, where we would be sending out invites, tracking RSVPs, tracking attendance, and spending. But we can also use the tool set for things like sales missions and tournaments, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So why should we use the integration? Well, it can help streamline the registration process. Whether you have the advanced version of the RSVP component that allows for online registration, or you have the basic version of the RSVP component which doesn't have the online piece, we still have the opportunity to streamline the process of sending out invites, tracking RSVPs, and tracking attendance. And we can invite, contacts from all of our different user groups. While my examples here today are talking specifically about inviting partners to an event, you can use the functionality to invite members of the media to an event, local consumers, meeting sales contacts, tour operators. Any user group in CRM is connected to the RSVP functionality. And then you might again want to track the invites, and you might want to track your attendance. In my example here today, we're talking about setting up a training, an extranet training for our partners. I think that's a great example because that's something that we want to be able to verify that we invited partners to. We want to keep a running list of who has attended these events and who hasn't, because that gives us the opportunity to reach out maybe a month later to those people who did not register or did not attend the training to ask if they would like to attend a different session. So again, it streamlines that entire process where we're able to invite any of the contacts from our CRM database, any of the user groups, media, PR, consumer, meeting, sales, tour, and travel, a member partner obviously included. We're going to then be able to send out the invites, track the attendance, and the RSVPs. But like I mentioned quickly, there are actually two different versions of the RSVP component or the RSVP user group inside of CRM. To give you guys a quick look at what I'm talking about there, when we first rolled these tools out to everyone, we first started off by giving everybody what we are now calling Events Basic. A little trouble, but here it is, just a little further down. So everyone had one. It was called RSVP, Events RSVP, but the functionality that you had in that group was a little bit basic. It gave us the opportunity to create an event. We can add in our attendees and send out email invites. Then we would manually track the RSVPs by coming back in and marking them, the person who RSVP'd as attending, then manually coming in and marking them as attended and tracking our in-kind and expenses. So the basic version is what you see here. You'll notice a difference if you've purchased the upgraded or the online version of the RSVP, in that it has this online RS information section on the main page. And you'll also see down below the configuration tab. So the advanced version, really what we're going to focus on here today, allows or will set up a page for the event. Once you complete the first step, and we're going to walk through that, of course, it's going to create a page online for this event that will allow for online registration, online credit card payment and processing, and it also allows for different levels of costs. For example, with both versions, there's a standard registration cost that costs $20 to get in the door. But with the advanced version, we're also able to set up required cost groups, as we call them, forcing the user to select one option inside of that group. With the advanced version, we can create as many additional cost groups as we call them, making some of them required, making others optional, where we can add in as many different costs as we might like. So the advanced version of the RSVP component gives you a lot of additional functionality. Allows you to place the RSVP or the event online, allowing for that online registration. Again, allows for additional cost levels. And then on the last page would be the credit card route authorization page. So all of those things are included in the advanced version. And again, the main reason you'll know if you have this advanced version is you'll see the online information section on the main event detail, and you'll see the configuration tab down below. But just because you don't have the advanced version, that doesn't mean this isn't the session for you. Both versions, started off as basic. So everything we're going to be talking about here today, basic does a lot of it in a very, very similar way. So you're going to be on the right track. Just advanced does a few more things. So hopefully the session works out for both of you, and I'll be sure to point out the differences between the two versions as we go through the specific functionality. But the first step, no matter which version you have, is going to be to create the event itself. The event detail, the event is the main home base, the starting point inside of this user group. So when it's time for you to create your new event, you can just come in and hit add new, and I'm just going to hit edit. So again, just to point out the main difference, the first thing you're going to see the difference between basic and this advanced version is this online RFP information. So if you have basic, these first two sections are exactly the same. This is how it looks inside of your system. And if you have advanced, of course, you're looking at it, it's the exact same here too. So what we need to do is start off by creating the foundation or the fundamental information for this event. We give it a name, we give it the dates and the times, can be a single date if you'd like, can be multiple dates. We add in an RSVP cutoff date. If we are allowing for online registration, this will automatically remove the register now button once that date hits, forcing the user to hopefully register before the RSVP cutoff date. If you are not using the online advanced version, in either version, all of this information can be pulled into the invite. So you may want to include the times, the dates, and the RSVP cutoff date in the invite. So that information can be pulled into the communications or can be pulled directly onto the website event detail screen. So what's the capacity? If we do have a limited capacity, we might want to enter in a number there so we get notified once we hit that capacity. What type of event is this? This is really meant for two things. One is reporting. We may want to build reports on how much we've spent on our member events as opposed to our sales events. This will also default the attendance list to that specific user group. We'll see that in a few minutes, but what I mean by that is when we go to build a list of the people we want to invite, it'll default to pull in people from whichever user group that's selected here. Every dropdown, including this one, is controlled by your admin. So if you aren't seeing a lot of options in there, your administrator can get some additional fields set up under admin dropdowns. We can enter in a status for the event. Sometimes you may just be planning the event. You're going to feel it out, send out invites, see if anybody wants to come or not, and then based on that, decide to hold the event or not. So that's an option. You could switch it to definite when you know it's happening, then canceled if it becomes canceled. But this is an event I'm already working on. I know what's going to happen, so I can just go ahead and enter it in definite status. And I'm listing myself as the CVB contact. So this would be the person who will get the notifications as people RSVP, if they're using the online component, and would be the main person responsible for this event internally. If we do plan to invoice through the events database, post-event, we can add in an invoice due date. Then we see event files. These are just files that can be held or can be attached to the event. So basically what I'm doing here in the top part, and even more so when we get into the online information, is building the landing page for this event. So when we send out an invite, we'll say click here to learn more and to RSVP, and they'll be taken to this first page where some of the information that we see is being populated by what I'm adding into here. Things like the time, the date, the RSVP, and the location. The location can be a partner event where you just start typing and it starts searching your member partner database. Or you can simply type an event because it might be at a park or something like that that isn't actually a partner. Then again, you see those files. So what we're seeing is there's the name of the event, the dates of the event, and the times. The location of the event, we're seeing that document that I've added so people can pull out, some additional information, and that's all the core event details. Again, if you're not using online, we can still build this into an invite. It looks something similar by dynamically pulling this content into a template. Then we start getting into the things that are different between the RSVP Advanced and the Basic. And that again starts with our online information, where we're choosing, or we're going to decide, should this event be available online for people to research and review, yes or no? Should they also be able to sign up? Is this an event we wanted to track RSVPs for? And that's our first 2 questions, really the first 4 questions there. Should we show it online, yes or no? With the RSVP component, once you set an event to yes on that page, all of the events that are set to show online go to a specific landing page. Then all of those specific events will have their own page there as well, so their own dedicated URL. But we're choosing to make it online. And then we're choosing, should we allow registration, online registration? Sometimes we just might want to point people to a direction where they can receive more information about the event. Other times we're going to actually ask them to RSVP for that event. So we are going to allow our online registration, and these are the dates the event will post online. So it popped up on 6/11, and it's going to automatically come down on 12/29. It'll remove from the website. I don't need to be in there conscious of that. The max number of guests anybody can bring. So you can set the number there. The number is the number of guests an individual can potentially bring. Is it a private event, yes or no? So a private event would be an event that somebody has to be invited to for them to be able to attend. A non-private event is something that people could just RSVP for. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Then we see here that we can set alert emails, so additional people can be RSVP'd as people are RSVPing. Again, since we're allowing for online registration, how will we like these people to pay? Give them the credit card option, yes or no? Are we going to invoice them? Is it just a free event? So we'll just put, a couple of these options on there. Then we see a disclaimer, a description, and a confirmation message. So throughout this system, there's going to be these different pages. We see here on the main page some information. We see a secondary page with the RSVP or the registrants information and their costs. We're going to set all that stuff up in just a few minutes. But these are just where we can set up a disclaimer, a description, and then a confirmation message, which would display to the partner once they've RSVP'd. The last part down here is connected to the location, in that they will automatically geocode the location. You may or may not want to have things like Google Maps on your event, but it's automatically going to map the geolocation based on the address that we've entered up above or the partner's address. Sometimes we're just typing in an address and we may need to place that point. Maybe, for example, the event is here at the Pima County Fairgrounds, but that's a huge area. The address is throwing the pin there. Maybe we want to make sure everybody understands that we're meeting up there. So that's it. We're just adjusting the pinpoint on the map, either saying automatically calculate it based on the event location, or let me manually move it to another spot. You also have tags to allow for, again, just basically for additional reporting. And once we've saved that event, again, if we're using the online component, that would have created a unique page on the website. You'll see that URL right here where we can click to go directly to that page. But the first thing I wanted to show is we get this little one for this event, my example. We get this section that says, well, enter in your email address to see if you've been invited to this event or if you've registered for this event. The reason that's showing up and it's saying, well, you cannot RSVP to this event unless you've registered for the event, is because I set it up as a private event. So we can see here, this person was not invited, so I can't get to the registration page. That again is because it is a private event. Only people who were RSVP'd will be able to register. I'm going to change that back over to no. And now we're going to see that it just takes the user directly to the front page of that event. So a private event asks somebody to enter their email address to see if they were invited before they can RSVP. And a public event is one that will be available for anybody to come in and fill out. So even though we just created the page, like I said, the homepage, landing page here, we still have control over these pages. What we'll see in just a few minutes is using a WYSIWYG editor, we're going to be able to add content or remove content to any of the pages throughout the process. So maybe I wanted to add in a big header image. Maybe I want to add in some additional description, some additional text. We'll see that all in just a few minutes once we get underneath the advanced RSVP settings. But before we get to that point, there's a few more things that we need to work on. Pretty much, again, we were building in that first step the invite information or the home page, the main page for this specific event. But again, there's the registrant page. Then there's the costs, two of the biggest things we've got to talk about. So these, for the most part, differ between the advanced and the basic version. Because with the advanced version, if we come down below, again, you're going to see this configuration tab. And when we click on that, we see our options of registration costs, required cost groups, and advanced RSVP settings. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about these guys. The first is registration cost. So that would be, the standard cost of registration, including the number of guests included. So what we're saying here is if you sign up, you are getting this. So what we see here is, first off, there are cost groups that we can set up, and then we come back in and can actually create our different costs. So first off, we see our required cost groups. And when I'm looking at my setup here, I set up some required cost groups. First off, we will see our registrant costs, where we're saying to register, you have to select from one of these options. And as we see here, I can't select two because this is the main registrant cost. You register and you're paying for one of those guys. Now, one of those could include guests. Like we see here, I have a table for 4. And what would happen in that case is the main registrant would be asked to fill out their information. And if they're purchasing a table for 4, they can then add in the detail for each of their guests. And again, what they might be purchasing. So that main registration cost is what we see in the first tab, where we can come in, and for my two examples, again, I had a table for 4. So you can add a new registration cost. We give it a title, the number of guests included, the price, the number of those that you have available, and should we allow for additional guests, yes or no. So with this setup, if we just hit save, that's what we're going to see, where we have this option here, which is a table for 4, one main registrant. It includes 3 guests. Another option is this guy, where it costs $10 for the main registrant, but it might cost $15 for each additional guest. So again, that's just an additional registration cost. Where I set this one up, mostly a lot of text, so I make sure that I'm hitting the right one. But we're saying for $10, that includes just the main registration, no guests. But we'll allow them to bring guests. And then how many guests? So we're giving them a maximum of 4. We're allowing for 4 guests. Those guests will pay $12 a piece. So again, for this registrant cost, it's a little bit different because the main person will pay $10. He'll be able to register up to 4 guests who will be paying $12 a piece. So again, registration costs are the main costs associated with this event. They can include guests in the cost, or they can have guests pay extra, or we just don't allow for guests. So the next session, as we're seeing here, we see this session, and we're seeing additional donation amount. These are the other 2 types of costs, basically, that I was talking about earlier. One in a required cost group, where we're saying, great, that's how much it costs to attend, but you need to pick from one of these 2 options to tell us which session you will be attending. You can charge for these or not. You might be saying, for $300, your table for 4 gets in and they can select one session at no extra cost. Or maybe we're saying for the table for $300 gets in the door and they would have to pay for one of the 2 sessions that might have different costs associated with them. But one of the 2 is required. So what that means is, for my example, I can't add something. It won't let me save with both. It won't let me save with none, because I'm saying you need to choose from one of those 2 options in that required cost group. So since we're making it a required cost group, I'm first going to come in and I just created a new cost group. Very simple. Give it a title, make it active. And then should I allow for only one cost in that group? I might not want them to register for both sessions. Maybe they start at the same time. So once the cost group is set, that's where I'm going to come in and actually add the costs into the groups. So for my first example, we see those sessions. I would hit add new. We see here that this area here is going to be, so I got a little off there, but this is where we're going to set up or add the different cost options to each cost group. So once the required cost group is set up there, we come down in and we would add in our new costs, where we would give the cost title. And then here we see these cost types. These are actually the different groupings of the costs. So these are set up through the admin. So I'm saying that this charge should be associated with this cost type for reporting purposes and should be in this required cost group. You can set this cost up. Maybe this is an early bird rate and they have to register by this date to get that cost. Well, once this date passes, that cost would no longer be available. The number we have on hand, a nice description. Then we see here we can make the costs different for the standard, the registrant, as opposed to the guest, so that we can have different costs or different charges, whether the person is paying for himself or is paying for the guest. So I entered one cost into the required cost group and set it up with this cost type for reporting. Then I created the other one in the cost group, and maybe this one was just a little bit cheaper. And again, it's going to be in that required cost group. So once we added those in, again, in addition to the main registrant costs, we see a required cost group where the user has to select one of those 2 options. We see the cost, we see the title. And then there's that third section that I created where it's optional. The user doesn't have to select something here, or could enter in as many as they would like into each of those different options. So those are, again, they're just costs that I created that aren't associated with a cost at a required cost group, because we don't want to make them required. They're just being grouped and reported by inside of this cost type of additional donation amount. So through the admin, I created a cost type of additional donation amount because I want to be able to report off of how much money we generated via donations. And I also wanted to have a section on the event where people can select from those options. I also set down here minimum and maximum. So I'm saying the maximum that they can register for is 4 of those, and that's why you're seeing up to 4 there. Now, hey, if we were requesting donation amounts, we might not want a minimum because we want as much money as we can possibly get. And if somebody wants to purchase $210 options, we might let them. So all we're doing there is we were setting that number. So registration costs, required cost groups, and then standard costs allow us to charge a flat cost for the registration, including guests, or charging the guests separately. Allows us to create a, force the user to select from one set of options. Then we add in just regular old costs, allowing the user to select or allowing you to charge for different levels, different things that you might want to charge for. So once we're done with our costs, we're just about there. Now it comes down to the details that I mentioned earlier, where we may want to update the content that displays on these different pages. So what we'll see in just a few minutes is I have full control over the questions we're asking on the registrant page, the questions we're asking on the guest page. Do I want to ask for their name, their email address? Do I want to ask them for something, different, something that isn't quite standard? Do I want to make certain fields required, yes or no? Do I want to change, maybe it should say postal code instead of zip code? So we're going to be able to change all those things. We're going to be able to change the titles of any button throughout the system. So if you want to change the wording on any button, we're going to see that in just a minute. And then again, where we're going to be able to really update the content of any page here. So these really are related directly to the advanced. The basic can kind of skip out for just a couple minutes. We'll still talk more about attendance and the rest of the tools. But these costs are what's different in the advanced version and in the basic different, and also the advanced RSVP settings that we're going to see here. So the first one that I mentioned is we have the opportunity to add update to decide what questions we should be asking of the registrant and of the guest. So when we come underneath advanced RSVP settings, the first one we see there is configure registrant fields. So this allows you to configure those fields to pick and choose the sort order of the questions, pick and choose what questions we should be asking, whether or not the questions are required, etc. And when we come down there, you're going to see standard fields dropped in there. And then we have the opportunity to edit any of those fields where we could change the label. And you'll see some fields I can't delete because they're required. To allow for online registration, for example, we need their email address so we can track that back to their record in whichever user group that they live in. So email's required. But maybe it should actually read email address instead of just address. I can adjust the sort order on any of my questions. Maybe the first question we want to ask is, what are you allergic to? Let's get that out of the way right away. Again, I can change the labels. I can make fields required, registrant or the guest or both of them. We can come right in here to add in a custom field to the attendee page. And in doing so, I have some options. Do I want to create a new field just for this event? It's not going to be used by another event in the future. And when we create a new field, should look familiar to some of you. We just decide what type of field do we want, a yes or no question, a multi-select, a date field, etc. We give it a name and then choose, should it be on just the registrant page, just on the guest page, or under both? Same fields, but I can create a new field that can be, again, used by other events moving forward. Or I can choose from a field that has already been built either through the admin or through this tool where someone selected this option here. So you can create a new field, again, ask additional questions. You're just adding, by creating a new field here, an additional question to be placed on the registrant page and or on the guest page. So again, we have total control of the form and what we're asking, the way we're asking it, and if we should be forcing the user to answer that question or not. So the configuration, advanced settings, and configure registrant fields allows us to configure the fields on the registrant and the guest page. The next one, just moving down the list, is kind of the big one, and that's to modify the registration template. So like we saw, we do have control over every page. As we go through here, we have our main page. We then have our registrant page. If I was to fill in this information to go to the next page and select from my options here, my costs, we will have a review page. It's a review and everything from the event, everything we just entered in. We have our payment options. I have my payment authorization, payment credit card authorization page. I'll let it load, and then we will have the review page or the final confirmation page. So each of those pages, they all live right here with a WYSIWYG editor underneath Modify Registration Template, where standard templates can be set up like we see here, where just by default, it's throwing content in there. And anytime you see %, something %, this works exactly like it does with our communication templates. That means it's dynamically pulling that field into that spot. So for this example, we see %, event name, %, then the word information. That's saying that it's dynamically going to pull in the name of this event right into that spot in bold and then large text. And it's always going to say information. It's always going to say when, then it's going to pull in the date information. It's always going to say where and pull in the location information. So all we're seeing there, and now we've taken to that last page, but I'm just going to, of course, go right away from it, back to the home base, starting spot. And what we're seeing there is, again, this template, the layout is the first page. So if I wanted to come in here and, like I said, maybe add in a big header image, and this is going to get ugly. I don't have a lot of great stuff, I don't think, on this computer. But hopefully everybody's familiar with the WYSIWYG editor, where, again, we can update the text, the content, the fonts, the style, all that good stuff. I'll just throw this guy in there. Maybe we want a nice big header. Drop that in. Actually, very horrible example, but that we'll still see that image in there. Maybe I want to pull in a nice big thorough description. Or maybe I want to dynamically pull in more content off of the event page, that main form that we set up. So again, just like templates, when we click on the little Simpleview trident, we're seeing every field that's available underneath an event, where if I select something like description, it's automatically going to throw the description from the event right in there. But maybe right above it, I want it to say description, and we want that to be in bold. So I'm going to come back to this because all we're going to see is when I hit save and I refresh the main registration page, we see there's that big image dropped in there. We see that I added in the word description and I dynamically was pulling in more content. So I have control over the look and the feel of everything that displays on each page. Come back underneath there. That was the first one. So I can either grab a pre-built template. You can have templates pre-built, so you're just grabbing a standard pre-built template. Or you might want to customize, and so you can use the custom layout. Or you can select from a pre-built template. We see each page, so this will be the next page. This is the registration page, and just to kind of verify this stuff, I'm just going to add to the template. So I'm just customizing the template or the content. We'll just put some stuff in up on the top so we can see it. Again, you can use all the WYSIWYG editor tools. We would see the guest page, where I'll come in and I'll just add some detail to the guest page so we can see it. We then see the payment options page, where I can, again, just want you guys to see that every page is customizable. I think you're all pretty familiar with the WYSIWYG editor, so don't need to take too much time with that. But then we're seeing our decline page, our confirmation page. This is the info that would display. The email that would be sent out for email confirmation. The email decline confirmation. So I'm going to save that because, again, we're talking about the main page that I showed you the edits on. We go to the next page and we see I made some changes to this page. I could have added a nice header image, added in some additional content there. Again, if I fill in the blanks, select some stuff here because I have to select from each of those. We see now another page that we had control over. And once we then come to the payment page, the last two we won't see. I'm not going to run a credit card authorization. But once we're finished here, the user would be taken to a screen to confirm or to show that they've been declined. They will also receive an email. So that's all you're doing there with the modify registration templates is you're modifying the page, each page, the content on each page throughout the registration process. We also see underneath advanced settings, again, a pretty simple one, but the ability to modify the vocabulary. So like I said, when we're coming through here, we have all these different buttons. You have the ability to change the title of each and every button throughout the system. So maybe, for example, instead of saying go back to last page, we just want that to say back. Well, that was the standard there. We can see this one was overwritten. So if I remove that text, it's just going to show what was the default, which is that the word would be back. Maybe instead of next, though, I want it to say forward or something. I know we have some international clients probably tuning in here today who might use slightly different language. So I said, instead of forward, is that what it was called? Instead of next, I'm sorry, we're going to call it forward. So we find the next field and we say, well, instead of calling it next, let's call it forward. So again, every little field that you have the ability to control there, and all I'm doing is changing the labels on my buttons. And last and not least in here, we still have some more tough stuff to talk about as far as attendance goes, but we see the advanced RSVP settings. And these are pretty simple. I'm going to come back and show you as I walk through these, give you guys the list right in front of you as we recap. Because again, we would have created the main event, including the online information. We then would have moved back down under configuration to add in the main registrant costs. The main registrant costs where we're selecting the cost type. We then came back in and added in the required cost groups and the costs associated with those. Talked a little bit about the registrant fields, again allowing us to change the labels, to modify the sort order, to make certain fields required on the registrant field and on the guest form. The ability to modify each page via those WYSIWYG editors. So each page in the registration process has a WYSIWYG editor where you can load up standard templates to automatically pull in there or that you might want to modify. We can update the registration vocabulary, again, the back button, the next button. And now looking at these RSVP settings, the first one is display back button on event detail page. And if this is set to yes, it allows you to hide or show, it's up to you, yes or no, to show the button on the event detail page. This would allow users to click back to browse the list of publicly available events. So what we mean by that is, again, on the main page, you may want to have a back button. I changed the label to say click to see current events. If we click on that, it takes us back to that main page that I showed earlier that shows all of the events that were set up to be available online. You can choose to include that button or not. Maybe you don't want people to jump back to see all the other events that are available. Send confirmation and alert emails. If this is set to yes, it would allow for the confirmation emails and alerts to both the user and those specified in the send alert emails to be turned off. So meaning does the person that we set up under the event, the main CVB contact, and or does the people who were listed here, do they want to receive alerts and emails as people are RSVPing? Yes or no? And again, we're just seeing those options under configuration, advanced RSVP setting. So send alerts, yes or no. Whoops. So the next one there is, do we want to allow the attendee lookup button on event details? So this allows for you to specify if regents should be able to look themselves up by entering their email address on the event. So that button is the button that we're seeing right here. Well, it's a brand new one. And then what it would do is if we just filled out that form, then it would automatically pull in the person's contact information here. In other words, I drop in my email address, it finds, hey, that person's on the list, and it pre-populates the form automatically based on that user's record in CRM. And then show unavailable costs. This is new. This allows you to display sold out costs where the available inventory is 0. Maybe you want people to see that there was an early bird rate, that it's run out, but you still want to show that cost. The alternative is that once the inventory for that cost is 0, you've run out of them, it just doesn't show that cost, period. You may want to show that cost with an available number of 0 so people see that it was at one point an option, Or you may want to say no to where once you're out of that, they don't even see that it was an option to even purchase. So that's pretty much all the advanced stuff. Again, the difference is there when we're building out that advanced version is we have to create information for it to display online. We then manage the configuration tab with our costs and those RSVP settings. But whether you're advanced or not, we then need to, once we've completed our build, we know how it looks. We've built, the pages look good. It's including the correct sets of information. We're requesting the correct sets of information. Well, now it's time to build in a list of attendees, to send out our invites, start tracking those attendees, and then to mark our RSVPs or to mark the attendance once we actually hold the event. So the first thing we're going to do is invite some people. So again, no matter which version you have, the next set of tools are all exactly the same on both advanced or basic. And this next thing is to add people to our attendance list and then to email them their invites. You could send out follow-up reminders after. But the first step, again, would be to build the people into our invite list. I'm going to quickly just jump over to another event. I'm just going to clone this one really quick because I want to see a fresh one with no attendees. But I come down to the bottom, and then starting from scratch again, you'll see no attendees in there. We want to add the people we want to invite. And I can do that in one of two ways. There's the long way, where I add in each attendee one by one, where I search their database, again defaulting to the event type that I selected earlier. I can find some people here by name or by account name. We can include that person in there, and then these will be should be defaulted to invited if we're going to use the system to invite people, and that's an important designation to make. Because what will happen, and I'm going to come back to our attendees in just 1 second, is when I come over here to click email invites. When I click email invites, it pulls up a WYSIWYG editor where I will be able to invite, and it's going to pull in the people I have not yet invited. So what I mean by that, and I'll come in to do it again the long way, but to add in just one more individual person. So this is where we're saying, have I invited this person, yes or no? I'm going to leave this one set to yes, and you'll see why in 1 second. Because now when I come in to build my event and I want to send out my emails, when I click email invites, it's only pulling in people who have not yet been invited. Because what will happen is when I hit email invites and I send out my invite, come back to that event. Well, now if I look under, we're going to see that they have both been invited. The reason behind that is once you hit email invites, we can have it automatically click over to say you've invited these people. Because now maybe a month goes by or a couple weeks go by and you think, oh man, I forgot to invite this other person. So I come back in to enter in just another person who has not yet been invited. Oops. And what happens is now when I hit email invites, it's only going to pull in that one person who has not yet been invited because we don't want to invite those other people again. So that invited bit, yes or no, and really the invited, RSVP'd, and attended, they're all connected to these next few tools that we'll talk about in just a few minutes. But it's important there when you're adding in a new user, if they are set to no, you're basically saying that, or I'm sorry, if they default is set to yes, you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to use another tool to invite these people. I want them to be marked as invited because I'm inviting them. Or if you're using CRM to invite these people, you set them to no. I'll come back to that in 1 second because I'll show you the faster way to enter in people into the invite list, and that's in mass. Again, one-off is fine, but you got to search for each person. By using search by mass attendees, I can select from a pre-built saved search, or I can build a list via a saved search right from here. So maybe I want to build a list off of tags. Maybe I want to build the list of people by, the category, the business type that they work for. More information on building and saving advanced searches in other sessions and in the knowledge base. But I'm going to just quickly say, well, I want to pull in that list of general managers that I previously created and I have not invited them yet. Here's the list of the 103, and I hit select all. Excuse me, and this is just going to take 1 second. Because what it's doing is it's reaching into member partner and it's grabbing each of these records, and then it's pushing a mark back underneath them to tell them that they've been added to this event. So I hit OK, and now everybody's been loaded up. And again, I want to send out my invites. I can click email invites. And again, we see that it's only being sent to people who have not yet been invited. I can create a custom invite, or I can grab a pre-built invite template. So you're probably starting to see a theme there, that this is all about the templates. We want to make it easier for you. So if you don't have any merged templates available, talk to your admin and speak to your CRM analyst. Hopefully we can create some standard email templates, invite templates for you. So you can just grab a pre-built template, create a fresh one. And again, when I hit send, it's going to go back underneath all of these people, and it's going to mark them as invited equals yes. So that way, again, I don't accidentally invite them again. And now, hopefully, if you are using the online component, some people are coming online and they're RSVPing. Some people are emailing you guys, and calling in. Some of you might not have the online component, so you're tracking your RSVPs manually. Well, if someone goes online and they RSVP, it's just going to find their record. It's going to say that they were already would have been invited. It's going to move them to attending equals yes. They've decided to come. So you can manually do it by coming in underneath the individual. You can also manually do it if you come right under here and you hit this Mark Attendees button. And we can see here that I can add those who are attending, maybe a little bit quicker in this way. And we save it. So then maybe we want to send an email reminder. Well, if I click email reminder, each of these are going to pull in a specific set of people. So the email reminder is only going to show, you see it's going to 3 people. It's only going out to those people who have been invited, who have not yet responded. So this would be a nice follow-up email to say, hey, we haven't heard back from you. We still love to see you. Here's the information. Here's where you can go to register. Then we see email attending. And if I click email attending, again, WYSIWYG editor with templates. But this is only going to those people who have been marked as attending, not the people who said they're not coming. And it's not going to the people who haven't RSVP'd. So this would be a message that talks about, a parking change, time change, something like that. I want to email a list of everyone who is coming to the event, and that's email attending. Then we might want to track the people, attendance, and then I'll show you where this all goes back to. Well, we have 2 ways to track attendance. Again, if we wanted to take the time to come in underneath each individual and say, well, this person was already invited, this person RSVP'd, and now this person actually showed up. You can do it that way. Or my suggestion would be during registration, at the front desk booth as people are coming in, you have this guy open to where you can just check people off as they've attended the event. Just going to make a note of this one here. Or it's a great use for mobile. The mobile version of CRM and the events component. So I just found the events user group there. And my recently viewed page, my recently viewed event, I can come right underneath roster. And as people are checking in, I can say, hey, Travis, he attended. Hey, Chris, he attended. So mobile allows me to do it's the same thing that we're seeing with this, where I can add in people attending or attended, just a little bit quicker, maybe from the mobile. So the reason we track all that, the reason we track the people who RSVP'd and then we track the people who attended, is that information is going to track back to their record. So for example, member partner record, if I come back in under the member partner record, I think this is the one that I used. First off, if we come to the account level, into the benefits summary, we will see the events tab, which will list a list of all the events that this business had been invited to, the name of the event, the dates of the event, how many people from their company were invited, and how many people actually attended. We will then be able to track that detail underneath the contact record as well. So we want to see a list of all the events that we invited Chris to and whether or not he attended and RSVP'd. We come under the individual's events tab and we'll see a list of every event, whether or not they RSVP'd, whether or not they were invited, whether or not they RSVP'd, and whether or not they attended. So tracking, again, RSVPs and attendance allows us to say, well, the reason you didn't know is because you didn't attend that event. We also see one more option down here, and that's to see a list of the incomplete registrations. It will also show where those people got lost in the process. So for example, we can see that these are people who started the registration process but gave up at some point. We see the last step they completed. So looking at Chrissy Leffler's record here, we can see that, she started trying to fill out the form. She made it through the review page. She was redirected to the payment center and then didn't process her credit card. So you could always follow up with her and say, hey, Chrissy, it looks like you were trying to register, got a little bit messed up on the credit card processing page. Can we help you out? So incomplete registrations will show a list of people who started their registration process but did not complete it. So other than that, we have tools that have been available in your system to quickly walk through, but we can set up traces like we do in any group. Remind yourself to send out the reminder, remind yourself to send out the thank yous. Maybe we're giving things away at the event. We might want to track that we gave everybody a visitor's guide or we handed out, hats to everybody in attendance. And there's more information in the knowledge base on each of these because they are, very global. They're included everywhere throughout CRM. I may want to track the money I spent on this event or the donations our partners made to help us hold this event by entering in our in-kind and expenses. And again, if we at the destination spent the money, it would be an expense and we would tie it to the partner where we spent that money. So for this example, maybe during the event, we paid and Wayland Photography $2,500 for a service of photography to come in and take photos of the event. Or maybe he donated that service. So it would just be an in-kind. In-kind means the partner made a donation. Expense means you spent that much money. And those track back to the partner record. Service requests, if we need to request something from our partners, maybe we need catering, we can use the service request to send out a catering request and to gather responses. Notes is just our general catch-all where we can add in documentation or just type in notes. Communications will show a list of all the communications sent out through this event. And then our invoices. If we did choose to invoice for this event, and as people are registering and they're choosing the invoice me option, we can generate a batch of invoices for those people and then apply the payments to those invoices directly through here as well. So just as a quick recap, when we're building in our attendance, you can do it in mass, which is going to be the preferred way, via an advanced search or by grabbing a saved search, searching off of things like tags. So we should be tagging contacts with, invite them to this event so we can pull those people in when we want to invite them to the event. Or I can add them one by one. I can then send out email notifications or invites, I should say, reminders. I can send follow-ups to everyone who's attending the event or who has RSVP'd. I can send a thank you to everyone who's attended the event by either creating a custom email or choosing from pre-built email templates. The incomplete registration button is going to show a list of everybody who has not completed the process. They started to RSVP, but they quit, and it's going to show where they stopped. Then that attendance list, we can print it off. I can export it out to Word. I'll show you those tools really quick. Or I can use what I did show you, the Mark Attendees button, either in CRM or on mobile. And so that was one last thing. If I come back underneath the event, If I need the attendee roster for anything else, I can click right there and I can export it. I can print it off. And again, just an additional tool down there under the attendance tab. So I think that's gonna about do it. There are always different variations. Everybody's trying to do something slightly different with the RSVP module. So if you have some specific questions, please reach out to your CRM analyst. And if you're a user who's on the basic and is interested in upgrading to the online version, the amount of time saved is a big reason why you might want to consider that feature. Please reach out to your to your account manager for the details on that. And in addition to the video that will be posted, I'll also be posting this guy. It's already in the knowledge base, but I'll post it right with the video. Just a nice guide that walks you through everything that we talked about here today. You could also reach out directly to me for some additional questions, or if you'd like to set up some additional trainings, see George at simpleviewinc.com. And I want to thank everybody for your time. Have a good afternoon.